Hello everyone, welcome to our Let's Play series of Phoenix Point. This is Colonel RPG as usual, and I'm very happy that you're chose to join me today as I try to figure out what happened over there. I think that's going to be like a quest item or a quest location that didn't get unlocked properly. Last episode we got ourselves a dog. It's a cat. It's a Mutog. Why, it's a thing. We also researched medical nanites, so now we get plus 50%, plus 20% healing bonus in battle. That's an interesting thing. A new generation of medical nanites has been developed, which are more flexible and better capable of directly interfacing with human biology. They can help regenerate damaged tissue at an increased rate and can even support organ function in case of severe injury. Their application has significantly shortened patient recovery times. The organ function bit, does that replace limbs somehow? Maybe? Probably not. So we were doing some research, and we are going to basically do the research in due time. So, moving on. That's an auto pause up here for chilling. Base info. Oh, right. I want to see. Yes, indeed. I can use a mist. I can build a mist repeller. And I probably should build these everywhere. Let's go ahead and do that. Phoenix point number 1. We don't need these many living quarters, do we? Oh, this is for stamina. Yeah, we don't need these many living quarters. We're going to demolish you. And we're going to build one of the things. A mist repeller. So that's you. Am I good here in terms of power? I am way more than good. I don't know why I built what I built. I'm just weird with the things. Either that or... No. I'm way more than good because the... we got an upgrade that allows us to just have more things. What are we missing here? Hexagons. Not the hexagons. Let's see. Equipment. Equipment. All equipment. All equipment. Let's see what we have. We have ourselves a Dagon's Tooth, but we use Marduk's Fist. We are not proficient in that. So we scrap that a little bit. We definitely scrap that. New Jericho Flamethrower. We don't use these. We are not going to be able to research them, though, so we probably should be on the lookout. We also have some machine guns over here that we're going to scrap. New Jericho Ghost Assault Rifle. New Jericho Ghost PDW. Personal Defense Weapon. That's what that is. I need to remind myself every time because I'm just not used to PDW being used. Neural Pistol. We have enough research for that. Phoenix Assault Leg Armor. Oh yeah, armor is where it's at. And let's just keep it like that because we just need one development. And hopefully we'll get more. Hopefully we'll get more thing. So here in... it doesn't say anything. So I need to look into personnel. Yeah, so this is R&D 4. No, it's specifically in Manticore 1. It doesn't say when they're gonna be healed. Does it mean that they're not doing anything here? Because I think it means that they're not doing anything there. Yeah, such is life. The people of Xena are friendly but cautious. Built around the remains of an old fortress, Xena is a place of refuge from the endless wars of the world. Its leader, Walter Ivan Tosso, remembers World War III all too vividly and isn't interested in getting involved in another pointless struggle. I was in the army and I was good at it, he says, speaking with a slight Italian accent. But if it was up to me, I would just spend my time making wine, not fighting other human beings. There is something to the Phoenix Project, something the Phoenix Project could help me with. It's superficial, perhaps, but I've been thinking a lot about family lately. I almost lost my own family during the war, you know. Took me years to track them down. I only found them a few months ago, and since then, I can't stop thinking about our links to the past, to the old world. I don't want to go back. I know we can't, but we shouldn't forget about those links. They are the story of how we got here. Toso would like us to recover an old genealogical tome from what used to be his family's crypt. We can do that. Thank you, he says. We always try to keep things practical here, and the truth is that the tome doesn't have any practical purpose, but the information within it connects us to all the people who came before us, and perhaps sometimes we need to be a little romantic. Am I wrong in saying that that is not romantic? If you're a native speaker, does this make sense? I don't think it makes sense. Nostalgic is the word. Okay, let me look it up. Yeah, that's confirmed. It's not correct. I'm sort of jumping on a limb here, but it isn't correct. The studio is Snapshot Games. The studio is from Bulgaria, and Bulgaria doesn't speak Russian. It speaks Bulgarian. But it is written in Cyrillic, and I don't know anything about Bulgarian, but I do know that the Russians love writing in their games the word not nostalgic, the word romantic when it should mean nostalgic. And in fact, they use the notion, whether it means nostalgic or not, they use the word specifically a whole lot more than English writers tend to use the word nostalgic, which is sort of funny. I mean, that's more of a cultural thing than anything else, but it is interesting in my eyes. It is interesting that Russian writers, and I do play a lot of Russian games, Russian written games anyway, or I have played them in the channel. And so I've noticed a pattern. They use the word nostalgic a lot more than English speakers would use the word, they use the word romantic a lot more than English speakers would use the word nostalgic. Now, I'm pretty sure that the reason why it's written romantic instead of nostalgic is because the Bulgarian word that came to the mind of the writer, or the Bulgarian word written originally, I don't know that this game is available in Bulgarian, but even if it is, or even if it isn't, it doesn't matter. It might be specifically nostalgic, like the same word, except maybe written, definitely written differently because it's in Cyrillic, but also just definitely a different, definitely like the same root, and then it gets mistranslated because you can't do that. You need to words mean different things even though they are the same word with the same origin. It's like the word actual. That's a good example. The word actual in English means something very, very different than it originally meant in Latin, because that's where it comes from. But, well, I say it's from Latin. I'm not sure if it might come from another language after Latin, a Romance language. But anyway, if you speak a Romance language, you know for a fact that actual in English does not mean what your word means. It's a very different meaning. Very different. It's completely different. Sensitive, sensitive, for example, is an interesting word as well in that. It's a little bit closer to what a Romance language would interpret the word sensitive to mean, because, sensitive in Romance languages tends to mean sensible. What actually sensible doesn't mean what, no, not sensible. Sensitive tends to mean, actually, I'm thinking about the translation. It means like delicate in most Romance languages. Although I say that, but maybe American Spanish has a different meaning for the word because, Spanish in particular is in French as well, but in Portuguese as well, is spoken everywhere. But still, that's one of the things, like how the word sensible mean delicate. It's nowhere near, well, it's sort of near in English, but it isn't. It's not used in that regard. So imagine every time this game would use the word delicate, it used sensitive instead. It would not make sense. And that's how I see the romantic. It's not that it doesn't make sense if you say romantic. It's just that, how is that romantic? Like, sure, it's grammatically correct, and you can say that as a narrator. You can say whatever you want as long as, it's just a sentence. But no, it's not romantic. It's nostalgic. It's perhaps a mixture of all things, like a mixture between romantic and just sort of like idealistic, maybe nostalgic, a little bit, I don't know, maybe contemplative. There's a lot of words that I can come up with that would fit what I think might be the original meaning for that particular word. Maybe not, and not just in this game. In games like Pathfinder Kingmaker, Fallout Nevada had it a lot of times. Insomnia had it a lot of times. It's just and Hungarian also comes up with that, because I'm pretty sure Kingdom Come Deliverance also uses the word nostalgic like that. Oh, but the first instance that I remember is definitely Stalker. Stalker has somebody say the word once in throughout the whole game, but for some reason that line in particular stood to me ever since I first played Stalker. Stalker is a fantastic game. You should definitely play it, but it is developed in Ukraine by GWC, or I don't remember the name of the studio. They're gone now because, well, it's complicated. But they use the word romantic in a wrong context, and it's mistranslated. It is just mistranslated. And I'm not sure why it gets mistranslated. Like, how do you fail that as a professional translator? It's just weird. It's really weird. But then again, maybe it's because of the way translation gets done, because it's notoriously underpaid a lot of the time. This archaeological site may be related to the antediluvian civilization It's not a proto-civilization. It's getting better. Now we just need to figure out what antediluvian means and try to establish that we are not indeed in the world of darkness or something like that, where there's vampires and stuff. Discovered by Randolph Symes III. If we can secure it, we may be able to... This is, like, super weird. Like, I'm sorry to ramble about so many things. But yeah, and I'm sorry to ramble again about another thing. But this is really weird. What does this mean? In a world where the sea level rose 6 feet, 6 meters, however much it was, you'd think that maybe this could mean before that, but it doesn't, because you know it would make sense that it would. It's just like, oh, the United States, you mean? Oh yeah, sure. I mean, yeah, it's that antediluvian civilization, but it's not what it's referring to. It's referring to literally the biblical deluge. Is it deluge in English? I don't know. Diluvian means deluge. That's basically, or actually it's the property of a deluge. So, you know, delugial. I don't know if that works like that. 666, since we're talking about the Bible. But I'm pretty sure it's also in the, I don't know the names. I'm very sorry. I'm very uncultured. I don't know the names of the holy scriptures of Islam and, well, actually of Islam I know, but specifically the one, actually I say I know, it's the Quran, but I'm not sure it is. Because I think Quran is a specific part of the scriptures and not just the whole scriptures like the Christians tend to have just a Bible, it's a whole thing. And the Jews also have another thing that I don't know the name of. And I'm very sorry for not knowing that because it's common knowledge and I'm just uncultured. But either way, because it's all Abrahamic religions, it's technically all probably part of all the mythos for all three religions. But still, the thing is, like, that just smacks of what the heck are you talking about? It's just like, why? What? What do you mean? It's so weird. It's the most baffling point of the whole game. Is just this thing. It's not even the proto-civilization, because the proto-civilization, you want to sound fancy, you find out what proto means, and you just apply it to anything that it remotely related. It sounds fancy. Just, it's my proto car. It's not quite a car, it's my project car. Instead of calling it a project car, you call it a proto car. Sure, it sort of works like that, but in proto-civilization, that does not. That's because it's a technical term in historical terms. Or I guess historical analysis anyway. Start the mission. Let's do this thing. Everybody's very injured. Actually, not everybody's very injured. Babe? No, everybody's very injured. And I am sad. Oh well. Such is life. We are gonna get some points over here. Maybe for strength. What exactly does that do? I don't think it increases how far items can be thrown. We have... Oh, that's for grenades. I was going to say we have literally never thrown items. That's a false. That's a false right there. We have thrown items. It's called the grenades. So, how about you? You... No. How about you? No? Maybe willpower. Doesn't matter. 25? Look at you having 25 right there. Rally the troops? No. Strength? No. Willpower is where it's at. Because you're a sniper. As for Pharmacos over here, you're a 16. We could get you rapid clearance for 30. We're going to wait a little bit. Lessa over here needs rapid clearance. I can go with that and just invest. Deploy the squad. Let's kill some... actually, I don't know what we're killing. because I suppose it is Pandorans, but it could be anything really. I don't remember the description specifically mentioning any type of enemy. We see no enemies. Our objective is to retrieve evidence of the antediluvian civilization. It's the Protoss. It's the freaking Protoss. Of course it's the Protoss. By the way, stuff like this, it's immediately the case of, this is an archaeological site. In fact, this has recently been cleared. You can tell by the slates of stone. There's no debris over them. So they're at the top strata of... actually, there's a name for that, and I might be close to it. It's not called top strata. It's called something else. But when you find a thing like this, I'll let you know, because I majored in archaeology, as I said a couple of times already. So I know what finding something like this entails. So, and it's really interesting as well, I find. If you find this in real life, what would be required for you to find something of this in real life? Well, first off, you need to understand that the Earth would have covered all this forever. Secondly, you would have to understand that where are the stones over here? Where are the stones that are missing? That I assume are missing because, you know, sort of looks like it, right? You can make that conjecture. You can't be certain, but you can make that conjecture. Let's assume that there are missing stones because, yes, there are missing stones. I can dictate what is canon in this game. So, yes, there are missing stones. Where are the stones? And this is all covered. Okay, so first things first. How do you know to look for something over here? Well, you can find it by chance, for sure. Like, for example, you want to make a house in here, and while making the foundations, the machine finds this sort of stone in there, and they're reasonable people who aren't awful, honestly, and they actually call the... Well, actually, I say that they aren't awful. They're reasonable people who aren't awful, and they live in a country that isn't awful, because if your country doesn't pay you for finding archaeological stuff like this, it's an awful country. Because, you know, if the government doesn't pay a person, like, imagine you have a house, you buy a terrain. Terrain is not the word. Land. Buy some land. That's the word in English. Terrain doesn't mean what it means in Portuguese. So yeah, there's another word like that. I ramble about all the things. Anyway, you buy a land plot of land. That's the word. So funny, such a funny word, plot, because it's the plot of a movie, but it's also the plot of a land. Anyway, you buy a plot of land, and then you want to make a house in there, and all of a sudden you find archaeological evidence of like this. And if your government is not going to pay you for the land and recompense you for the trouble, at the very least, of digging, because an archaeological team is going to have to be deployed, you know, and we're not... Immediately, you won't be sure that you're going to need to give up the land and have it transformed into a museum. So at least a team of archaeologists is going to need to go in there and, you know, do some digging to see what's up. So if your government doesn't pay you, then you should lobby your government to pay you, because basically that means that in those countries, and there's a lot of those like that, all the history of the land is being destroyed every day. Well, if there's a lot of construction anyway. If there's not a lot of construction, then it's only being destroyed in agriculture. Agriculture also destroys a lot of this. But that's just my ramble. And politics do play a huge part in how often we find this sort of stuff. And when I say politics, I mean sort of policies rather than just politics, because it's kind of complicated if we were talking about just general politics. Because any political affiliation can think in any way regarding this sort of stuff. Anyway, the point is, let's just think that you find this house, find this thing, not by random chance, right? How did you find this? Well, most likely, you would have seen a stone that's missing from here, and you would have seen it like many miles to that direction. I was going to move the camera there. You know, I'm not going to move the camera there. It's very far away. It's possible even that you found it in an old house. You found like an old house, and you find this sort of like weird pattern. And maybe you find houses around this area and like a few miles around here. You find that you keep finding these stones that are weird. And you're like, there must be something that where these stones came from. And people, because, you know, stone is a very, especially cut stone, is a very valuable asset. That's why a lot of castles that exist, stone castles specifically, that existed early on, don't exist anymore, and walls and bridges and stuff like that, because people just use the stone to make houses. That's, you know, it's good stone. You're going to make a house out of it, of course. You're not an archaeologist. You don't care about stupid preservation. So you're going to make a house out of it. And that's how you find it. You find a tower with a stone from here. And you don't know it's from here, obviously, but you sort of try to figure out what's going on. So you start looking for it, and that will reduce, or that will increase your chances of finding something like this. Now, you're not just gonna go to the top of a hill and look around and see, oh, there it is, we found El Dorado. No, and you're also not just gonna guess where, like, from like, if this is where indeed on top of a hill. It likely would have resulted in some stones going downhill, and just you find the stones at the riverbed or something like that, and just be like, let's look up that mountain or something like that. It is possible, but either way, if you were arrived here, you wouldn't know anything was here, because all this would be covered completely. There's no way that it wouldn't be covered, because you need to think about it like this. Either this is a basin, a place where land is it's like with the rains and the wind, where dirt is deposited. So it basically, the dirt is going to accumulate around the stones that are not going to go away with whatever process of these stones going away. Or this is the top of a mountain, in which case it would not have survived. Most likely, it's not quite like that. There's a lot of process. There's a lot of cases where old stuff, prehistoric stuff, survives on top of mountains. Unfortunately, for something before the deluge of the Bible, and I'm thinking, like, how long is it supposed to have been ago? Like 3 millennia, maybe? No, it's more than that. I don't know. Anyway, a few millennia are just going to destroy these stones if they're atop of a mountain. So they would have to be protected by dirt for them to be here. Which means, and this is why I ramble, that this wouldn't be like this. Now, how would you find that? That's the interesting bit, because every other part of my ramble has not been interesting. I do apologize. But the interesting bit is, and we have found things like this, is that imagine the dirt, let's think like this. Let's think on a vertical line that goes from the base of that little vertice, that edge, to over here, and then continues up a little bit, like a meter or a couple of meters above, right? Imagine the dirt is over here, like on that particular axis, if I'm making myself understood. The dirt is over here, covering this bit. That means that the earth that is above this stone over here, this pavement thingy, is like only a meter deep, and the earth over there is like 3 meters deep, and the earth over there is probably 6 meters deep, or however deep that goes until the bedrock, because the bedrock is also a pretty important thing. Now, what that means is that vegetation is going to be different, and that's lovely. I find it so fascinating. It's so awesome. The vegetation itself is going to be different, because, you know, just normally you're going to have things that grow a little bit more over here, and it's going to be, when looked from above, literally what it's going to mean is that this is going to be darker grass and just darker foliage, because it's denser, it's got better earth than whatever is over here, and certainly than what is over here. So when you look from above, especially in buildings like these, and I'm thinking of a specific city that was found, I think it was an Inca city in Peru. Am I wrong on the... I don't remember. I never studied the Mesoamerican civilizations. I think it was in Peru, but they found basically through drones. No, was it actually Google Earth? I think it was Google Earth. Google Earth is an enormous revolution in finding this sort of stuff. But anyway, they found it because they looked around around Google Earth, and they saw patterns. And that particular city had these patterns. But there's, especially European cities, protohistoric civilizations in Europe don't have these sort of patterns, so they're a lot harder to spot. In fact, I don't believe they have ever been spotted like that using the topographical analyses of foliage. So it's a lot harder. But yeah, and then what would happen is, obviously then you would have something similar to Pompeii, where the archaeologists would have to go in there and start digging away, and it's a lot of work. Digging this stuff is a tremendous amount of work because you have to shovel it out. Archaeology is about shoveling dirt a lot, and very carefully as well. Well, a lot of the time it isn't. It's kind of complicated. You can be a little bit quicker with like, you don't need to be here with the teaspoon digging the dirt slowly and methodically. You do it with a shovel, literally, and with a sash. And what is it, a sash? Is it? No, that's not what it's called. What is the thing? Like it's not a shovel. It's a hoe. That's the one. A hoe and a shovel. You use that a lot, and a pickaxe and things. But it takes a lot of work, and this does look like an archaeological dig. Because it's very level, for one, which means that it's still. This probably means that it's already reconstructed, that it's already filled up. One of the things that you do in archaeology, if you're not going to be able to get back to a dig site, is you actually fill it up with well, not dirt, but if you have to fill it up with dirt, then you can do that, no problem. The reason why you can do that is because dirt assumes very different consistencies depending on how old it is, in terms of just how long it has been there. So it's the biggest skill of an archaeologist is to actually be able to distinguish between those levels of dirt. You see, for example, over there, you can look at that texture, and you can see that there's some dirt that is a little bit darker, and dirt that is a little bit lighter. Now, in an archaeological site, it's very likely that this dirt over here is a different stratus than that one, which means that this dirt is a lot older than that dirt over there. And that could happen because of many things. Usually, in a situation like this, it probably means that level over there would be the level right after that was there, right after the pavement that was supposedly there, that could have been there, was removed. Yeah, whereas this one was put in there a lot later, because it's above that one. It can never be below. It's like you always play the game of, is that above? Then it's younger. And the reason why you need to know that is because whatever you find in these things needs to be assigned to each strata. So, for example, if you find something inside of that particular thing, and if you realize that was this thing over here, this lighter dirt over there, is indeed because you have the shape. It really looks like it just one of these stones was removed and they just put some other stone over there, and rather they took the stone and then the dirt just accumulated. So whatever you find in there, it's older or it's younger than these stones. Than these stones being here, it's also younger than the date of this being removed, or rather deserted. And certainly whatever you find there is even younger. But whatever you find below is older. So whatever you find below this section, it is most likely older than even the foundation of this stuff. So it is very important to dig down and make these maps and make these drawings of the slices and cross sections of all this stuff, because that's how you learn about the history of a place. And that's what you study if you learn archaeology. But if you watch my Let's Plays, you get a very vague notion of this, and hopefully you don't get bored. But we are out of time for the day, so we're going to have to figure out this whole place in the next episode. For right now, I'm Colonel RPG, and this has been Phoenix Point. I really hope you've enjoyed it, and if you did, go ahead and leave a comment, like the video if you want to see the next episode come out sooner rather than later. But above all, thank you so much for watching, and I hope I'll see you next episode. Bye-bye.